Some stories aren't about monsters lurking in the woods, but about what waits in places we trust most. A man lost inside his own house after watching static on TV, and a babysitter who signed up for more than they could handle. These are two terrifying tales you won't forget. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more scary stories. I live alone in a 2-story house I inherited from my grandfather. It's not too big, not too small. I've been here about 3 years now, and while sometimes the creaks and groans of an aging house make it unsettling, I've always thought of it as safe. That changed one night, in July. The air was thick with heat, even though the windows were cracked open. I couldn't sleep, so I sat in the living room with the TV on, flipping channels. Infomercials, old reruns, weather reports, nothing worth watching. But then, at channel 98, the screen shifted to static. That wasn't unusual. Static happens. What was unusual was that, for the first time in my life, the static felt intentional. It wasn't random noise. It pulsed. Shapes seemed to form inside the fuzz, almost like faces pressing against the glass before vanishing again. I leaned forward. For a second, I swear I saw a corridor appear in the static, stretching endlessly. And then I heard something. A faint knock. Not from the TV, but from upstairs. I muted the television, holding my breath. Knock. Knock. Slow, deliberate, from the direction of my bedroom. I grabbed the nearest heavy object, a fireplace poker, and walked up the stairs, each step creaking under my weight. My bedroom door was wide open, and I knew I hadn't left it that way. I flicked on the light. Empty. Everything was in place. Bed unmade, closet closed, desk messy with bills and papers. Then I noticed something else. The room was bigger. I know that sounds insane, but it was as if the walls had stretched further apart. The desk was farther from the bed than it had been. The closet door seemed to sit deeper in the wall, like the room had grown without me noticing. I backed out slowly, unsettled. That's when I saw it. Another door at the end of the hall. There had never been a door there. My entire upstairs consisted of 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. That was it. But now, there was a door, and it was slightly open. Against my better judgment, I walked over and pushed it open. The smell of dust and mildew hit me instantly. Inside was a narrow staircase, leading upward, even though the house had no attic. Still gripping the poker, I went up. At the top was another hallway, identical to the one below. The same faded wallpaper, the same creaking floorboards. Except this one was longer, much longer, and lining this hallway were doors, too many doors. Each one looked like it belonged in my house. Same brass handles, same cheap paint, but I didn't recognize any of them. I tried the first door. Inside was a kitchen, my kitchen. The same cracked tile, the same fridge, but something was off. The table was set for 4, with steaming plates of food waiting. I don't own plates like that, and I live alone. I closed the door quickly, heart pounding. The next door opened to my living room. But instead of being cozy, the furniture was wrong. Everything was stretched taller, like it had been designed for someone 8 feet tall. The TV in the corner was on, playing static. I shut it. Every door I opened was some warped version of my own home, my bedroom, but with the bed nailed to the ceiling. My bathroom, except the mirror was filled with static fuzz instead of a reflection. And then, at the end of the hallway, I found a final door. Written on it in black marker were the words, "You shouldn't have watched." My hands were trembling, but I turned the knob. Inside was a small, windowless room, bare except for a single chair, facing a TV set on the floor. The static hissed loudly, filling the room, and in the chair was a man. He was sitting perfectly still, his head tilted slightly toward the TV. His skin looked waxy, pale, like it hadn't seen sunlight in years. I whispered, "Hello?" The man turned, and it was me. Same face, same clothes, same terrified eyes. He didn't speak, just smiled, a slow, unnatural smile that stretched too wide. I stumbled back, slamming the door shut. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. I ran down the hall, flinging doors open at random, searching for an exit. But each door just led to another wrong version of my home. Finally, I burst through one and found myself back in my own bedroom. Relief washed over me, but only for a second. Because when I looked around, I realized something was still off. The clock on my nightstand read 3:33 a.m., but I don't own a clock like that. My real clock had broken weeks ago, and I never replaced it. I looked toward the closet and noticed it was open just a crack. Something moved inside. I bolted out of the room, down the stairs, and into the living room. The TV was still on static, humming softly. My poker slipped from my grip as I fell onto the couch, gasping for breath. And then, through the fuzz of the static, I heard a voice, my own voice, whispering, "You'll never find the real house again." The screen flashed. For a split second, I saw myself sitting on the couch from a different angle, like the TV was a window, watching me from across the room. Now every night I try not to turn on the TV, but sometimes it turns on by itself. The static hum fills the room, and sometimes I hear footsteps in the upstairs hall. When I was in college, I used to babysit on the weekends to make extra money. Most gigs were boring, easy jobs. Put the kids to bed, eat some snacks, watch TV, and get paid. But there was one night I still can't shake. One that I've never told anyone about until now. I got hired by a couple in town who lived in a big older house just outside the city limits. They had 2 kids, both under 10. The parents were heading out for the night and said they'd be back around 1 or 2 a.m. They gave me the usual rundown. Bedtime was 9, snacks were in the pantry, the Wi-Fi password was taped to the fridge. It seemed like the easiest job ever. The kids, a boy and a girl, were polite and didn't give me trouble. We watched a movie until their bedtime. Then, I tucked them in upstairs. They begged to sleep on the couch instead, since they liked falling asleep to the TV. I didn't see the harm, so I let them. By 11:30, both kids were asleep on the couch, next to me, while I scrolled through my phone. That's when it happened. The old box TV in the living room, one of those heavy ones from the 90s, suddenly flickered on. The thing is, it wasn't even plugged in. At first, I thought maybe it was some weird electrical thing with the house. But what came on the screen wasn't static. It was a grainy black and white video feed of a room. A familiar room. It was the upstairs hallway, facing the kids' bedrooms. I froze, staring at it. The image shook slightly, like it was from a hidden camera. Then the camera feed panned slowly, like someone was holding it. My stomach dropped when I saw it turn toward the kids' bedrooms. The girls' room came into view. And on the screen, I saw her, already in bed. But that wasn't possible. She was asleep right next to me on the couch. I told myself I must be imagining it, that maybe I was overtired. But then the figure appeared. A tall, thin person in the video leaned over her bed and tucked the blankets around her. Their movements were slow and deliberate, almost tender. Too tender. I whipped my head to the couch. She was still there, asleep. Then back to the screen. She was in bed upstairs, breathing steadily while that figure stood over her. And then, as if the person in the video could sense me, they turned their head directly toward the camera, directly towards me. I dropped my phone and scrambled to shut the TV off, but the screen stayed lit, faintly buzzing. The boy on the couch stirred and mumbled in his sleep, but didn't wake up. I didn't want to terrify them, so I just sat there, staring at the screen, heart pounding. Then the feed changed. It cut to the boy's room. There he was, in bed upstairs too. Again, impossible. The figure was already there, leaning over him, stroking his hair. My whole body went cold. I wanted to run upstairs, but some deep primal instinct told me not to. Something about that figure. The way it moved. The way it seemed to know I was watching. It felt wrong, like it wasn't even human. The figure slowly stood up in the video and began walking toward the camera, toward the hallway. Then the feed went black. I sat frozen for what felt like hours, every creak of the old house making me flinch. Eventually, the TV went fully dead again. No power at all. I tried to convince myself I had imagined it, that it was just a weird electrical surge in my exhausted brain filling in the blanks. The kids never stirred again, and when the parents got home, I didn't say a word. But it didn't end there. The next morning, I woke up to a text from an unknown number. No name, no saved contact, just an image. It was a still frame from the video feed. It showed me, sitting on the couch, staring at the screen. The two kids were asleep beside me, and behind us, just barely visible in the darkness of the kitchen doorway, was that same tall, thin figure, smiling. I deleted the photo immediately, convinced it was some sick prank. But the number wasn't traceable, and when I went back to the family's house to return something I'd left behind, the parents mentioned something that still makes me shake. They said I was the first babysitter they'd had in months, because the last one had quit without warning. She told them she couldn't watch the kids anymore, because the house wasn't safe. I never asked for details, and I never took another babysitting job again. But sometimes, when I wake up late at night, I swear I hear the faint sound of a TV buzzing, even though I don't own one anymore. And I wonder if I was ever really the one watching that night, or if something else has been watching me ever since.